Good morning, everyone. My name is Claire Press. It's my great pleasure to be here today on behalf of Clean Cut to host this panel on ethical and sustainable fashion. I'd like to take a moment, first of all, just to consider how remarkable the fact of that even is. It's only very recently that those words, sustainable and ethical, have been familiar in the fashion context. Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week Australia turns 20 this year. As a fashion journalist, I think the first one that I covered was 2002. Back then, if you tried to suggest that green was the new black, you would certainly have been talking about the colour, not the ethos. But that was before Rana Plaza, that was before campaigns such as Fashion Revolution and Livia Firth's Green Carpet Challenge. That was before designers internationally began to build sustainability into their design processes. But I really do think that we're in a moment that can create change right now. I'm joined today by three people who are active in the sustainability space within the industry in their own unique ways. In a moment, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. But first of all, we're going to play a brief video message from Kit Willow, who really wanted to be here with us today, but is unfortunately in Singapore. Many of you will be familiar with Kit as a very well-respected designer from her brand Kit Willow, which she began, I think, in 2002. She walked away from that brand in 2013, and now she has returned with a new label, Kit X, which is built on ideas of sustainability and strong ethics.
There's so many people involved in fashion at every single point, and it starts almost with soil. So for Kit X, I understood that I needed a new supply chain, or I needed to understand where everything came from. And to do that, I spent a year researching. I had no idea the effect that the materials actually had. I knew at that point that what I was to do next had to be win-win. Why can't beautiful, desirable clothes be created that women love to wear, that fit, that move well, that look great, without harming the planet? So really, it's as simple as creating beautiful clothes that women want to wear with minimal impact on the planet and on people. We're using plastic which is sucked out of the ocean, knitted it into lycra in Italy, and we're making bodysuits out of it. We use zips that come from recycled plastic PET bottles. So it's all about almost the materials of the future coming from the materials of the past. The first collection that we've sold overseas in Paris and also in Australia has been received so well, and they were very embracing of it because of the stories behind the fabrics, but also because they wanted to wear it. And the images in the lookbook that we shot looked like a strong, directional fashion brand. And that's really where I see that huge opportunity. With great design and organic, ethical production, it's win-win. And that's, to me, success.
Great. Guys, I'm just going to ask you to introduce yourself to the audience and tell them what it is that you do, starting with Kate from Q.
Hello everyone, I'm Kate from Q. I'm Retail Brand Manager at Q Clothing. I work across retail operations but also closely with our design team on buying and allocating product to store each week. We are now Australia's largest manufacturer of women's fashion, and we're accredited with Ethical Clothing Australia. And that's why we're here today, essentially. It's something we're very passionate about, the continuation of our industry.
Thanks, Kate. And Ben. Ben is from Nobody.
Hi, I'm Ben from Nobody Denim. I work as the brand marketing manager, and I too work across all aspects of our business, from marketing, press, and also work very closely with our design team. Nobody Denim is a brand that was established back in 1999, so been around for 16 years. We are a premium denim brand that manufactures everything out of one roof in Fitzroy, everything from design, development, manufacturing, warehousing, and we ship globally to around 300 stockists around the world, and a small family-built business. And we believe that very much that design, quality and sustainability are very well connected.
Thank you. And Gosha, if you'd like to tell everyone what it is that you do with Koto.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Gosha, and I'm the founder and creative director of Koto. We are a certified fair trade organic label based in Wellington in New Zealand. And we started in 8.5 years ago, and now we show our collections in Paris and New York, Los Angeles, Copenhagen, and we have agents all around the world, and over 150 stockists, and so here I am now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ben, I'm going to start with you. I would love just to ask you why it is you think that we're in a moment right now where these conversations are happening more broadly. I know that nobody doesn't, for instance, have a sustainability tab on your website. It's not something that you have been pushing as a really strong kind of message behind what it is that you do to date. Are you seeing a shift in attitudes, and are you feeling like more people are asking questions around sustainability? And if so, why do you think that is?
Yeah, I definitely think there is a shift happening. You know, I think we would all be blind, Freddie, not to see that something is happening. From a brand perspective, Nobody Denim ultimately is a fashion label, and that's how we see ourselves. We produce high quality, premium jeans for men and women, and we need to be positioned that way. Saying that, part of our brand's DNA and the fact that why we make a really good product, like our brand is all about the product, you know, we don't have a face of the brand, and why we make a really good product is because we do manufacture in Australia, and the fact that we manufacture in Australia is a brand that people can trust, and they can trust us because we have ethical practices, means that all of the people that work in our factory, we are ethical accredited, and it means that there is that kind of transparency in that design process. So I definitely think there's a shift happening in customers, especially with big international brands coming to town, and I think that people now want to know where their product is made, why one of our products sits, very different to another product. So for us, it's very much about this knowledge aspect, so about making sure that, quality and customer knowledge is hand in hand when it comes to sustainability. So, we're doing that through all the aspects of, picking raw materials, making sure that our care labels are showing how best to care for your jeans to make sure that it's a lower impact on the environment and things like that.
It's interesting that we're talking about made in Australia, and we all know that it's easier to monitor your supply chains if they're local, so made in Australia can be a fantastic solution, but it's not the only way. I'd love Gosha to talk a little bit about being fair trade accredited and about how you began. And I was just speaking to her before, and she said that she was working for Weta, which is obviously Peter Jackson's company in Wellington, on reception, when she decided that she was going to change the world. That was 8.5 years ago. You've got 12 staff now in Wellington. Yeah. Would you like to just explain a little bit about what the climate was like then and why you decided to go for an ethically based business structure?
Sure. I mean, I quit my job and started the brand on $5,000 on a government grant. I had no idea about fashion. I never done a degree in fashion. I didn't really know what I was doing. And it just grew from there. And a friend of mine suggested I should start a fair trade organic clothing label. I didn't know what that meant, so I Googled it, and I thought it sounded like a good idea. Obviously, I had a passion in sustainability and ethics, and I wanted to put it towards something, and I just felt like it was a good idea, and I put an order in with a factory in India, and it arrived, and then, it went from there. So basically, our production chain, how fair trade works, is we're certified by the Fair Trade Labelling Organisation, and we're also organic, and we're certified by the Global Organic Textile Standard, which is GOTS. And the Fair Trade Labelling Organisation, they certify the people at the bottom of the chain, which is the farmers. So then from the farmers, everything else is monitored. So from the cotton will go from the farm to the ginning mill, where the cotton gets separated from the seed, then it gets spun into a yarn, then it goes to a dye unit, then it goes to a CMT, which is a factory that stitches and cuts everything. So, and that's all transparent, and that's a production chain that I travelled to when I started up the business, and I'm really, really proud of. So, it's it's amazing to know that it does work. It's not perfect, but you know, the more interest that we have, the more it will become perfect.
Gosh, I'm just going to read you a quote from the Q&A, which you can find printed in the brochures in your bags, guys. You said, amongst young people 10 years ago, organic and fair trade weren't buzzwords, only hippies were into it.
Yeah.
Have you seen that change, and why?
Oh, definitely. I mean, you just got to pick up a magazine like Kinfolk or, you know, anything about slow living, and it becomes part of living, ethics or sustainability. They're just part of the norm now. People are interested in, going to the forest and cooking some food over a fire. Like, it's just that, it's the basics, the simplicity of it. Yeah.
I'd like to move over to Kate now. I'm going to ask you about being Ethical Clothing Australia accredited, but just listening to Gosha speak there about that kind of rise in interest in where your food comes from and that kind of broader feeling outside of fashion circles towards sustainability. I don't really think that it's translated yet into the mainstream in fashion. Do you think that sustainability is a selling point when it comes to fashion and clothes in Australia?
I think to a small proportion of the customer base, it is important. I think we will see a shift in future. I think the food analogy is absolutely perfect. Everyone is into organic, grass-fed. That's got to move across to fashion at some point. There are people who do read the labels and are concerned, and there are others that are more price sensitive. So for us, being accredited by Ethical Clothing Australia was kind of a no-brainer. When Rodney Levis started the business in 1968, he made here in Australia, and the whole business model was built around delivering to store every single week, and that's something we continue to do. For us, we've had so many...
That was fast fashion before fast fashion was afraid.
It was fast to store, but not necessarily disposable. So
Right.
The quality level was there. And the quality came from making here in Australia. And it's something we're really proud of and committed to continuing to do. Making here has given us key business advantages. We're able to be reactive. We're able to repeat within a season. We're able to work quite closely to the market. So we work sort of 6 to 8 weeks out from
Right.
market rather than planning a whole season 6 months in advance.
And that has to make you more nimble as a business. If there's anyone in the audience who's a designer or a budding designer, I think that's an interesting point that you might think as a startup label, it's disappointing you haven't got the minimums to make overseas, but making locally can make you a more nimble operator, right?
So because we work with 15 different factories here and have 350 workers in these factories that we work with, but we're able to produce 50 to 100 units and trial things, test the market, see if it's working, see if the customer's ready for it, and then take it further when they are.
I'd love to ask you just briefly if you might be able to explain to everyone why be accredited, why not just make in Australia? Why jump through the hoops?
The hoops aren't as large, perhaps, as they once were, and Ethical Clothing Australia does offer concessions for people young designers wanting to be accredited, and the costs aren't too onerous. What it essentially does, it maps your supply chain for you, so there is complete transparency. One of the most important things it does is it ensures that any outworkers are paid the rate that they should be paid. And you know at all times who these people are, where they're working, how much they're being paid, are they getting their superannuation. There's no hidden workers that are getting $5 an hour. None of us want to be paying workers $5 an hour. It's terrible.
Okay. I'm just going to leap forward and talk a little bit about the other side of sustainability and ethics, which is the environment. Ben Denham's a notorious polluter. We've all read the stories about tipping dyes into the water systems, etc. What do you do at Nobody to limit your environmental impact?
Yeah, I think sustainability is a really complex issue, and I think we can't tackle everything at once. So for us, we have a responsibility as a brand to make sure that we are designing and we're selling a garment that is obviously really well respected and loved and ultimately worn over and over, and it's not disposable fashion. So
end use as well.
yeah, like the end use is key for us. Like if we come up with a quality product that's made from yarn of the best materials that are sourced globally from premium denim mills and make sure that we're using the best type of manufacturing processes for quality, means that customers, which is ultimately the people that are going to have the greatest impact on this environment. Like, yeah, denim from a manufacturing perspective is really has been known as bad polluters. For us, we do everything ourselves, as I said, in our own factory. The one thing that we don't do is actually kind of mill our own denim, and that's because there are no denim mills left in Australia.
Right.
So what we do is we work with premium denim mills, most of them from Japan, and we make sure that we're working only with organisations that are accredited, that obviously have really good ethical standards.
Okay, great.
And on that line is, I guess, that end use as well, is that we try to do everything we can to minimise kind of usage.
Are your jeans old?
Sorry?
Are your jeans old?
My
You've been
jeans
wearing
old.
them for a
Well,
long time?
there's actually a little bit of stain, so don't look at that. But we totally encourage our brand and our designers to make sure that they're doing everything in their design process to minimise waste. So everything we do from a design perspective is making sure that we're really lean with our manufacturing.
Okay. I'm just going to stop you there and just move on to Gosha. I'd love for you to just talk to us a little bit about how customers react to good ethics in a brand. Koto's recently been expanding into the US and also into London. How many stores did you say you have now?
Around 150 for the next season.
That's a lot of stores. How much do you think the ethos behind the brand is selling your clothes that you design?
Well, for us, it's our foundation, and it's a very staunch foundation. I mean, to the point where we don't have zips, and we only just got buttons because we found recycled hemp buttons in Italy. And
Sorry, what buttons?
recycled hemp buttons in Italy.
I've never even heard of recycled hemp.
Yeah.
It's a thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's... sorry, can you ask the question again?
Yeah, how much do you think that thinking behind the clothes sells the clothes?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's the foundation. I think the consumer now is asking for more, so it has to be design-led and it has to be really excellent quality, and our fabric is just really lovely and it will last. And then the extra cherry on top is that we are certified fair trade organic. I think the consumer is asking for more. Buyers are smart.
Do buyers like that idea? Do
Definitely,
buyers see that?
because it's an extra thing that they can sell to their customer. So customer walks in, they go, oh, that's a really great top. They try it on. They're like, oh, did you know that it's also certified fair trade organic? And they'll be like, oh, well, I'll definitely get it then. So it can't be just the main thing that you base your label on.
Do you think it gives you a competitive edge now in the current climate?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it always has. Definitely, because if there's two similar labels, we do a building blocks range, which is very simple t-shirts, pants, dresses. It's simple. There are a lot of people doing that. The reason that stores pick ours up is because it has ethical and sustainable credentials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can you just share with us some of the stores that you're selling to internationally and perhaps in Australia?
Well, we've just been picked up by LNCC in London, which is amazing. Amazing. That was as of 2 days ago. So,
So that's seeing Koto hang alongside high-end labels in that offering.
Yeah. I mean, we're in a market placement of so many different stores, but we definitely want to be in an aspirational market.
I'd love to ask you all about what makes you hopeful about the current scene when it comes to sustainability, and perhaps this idea of, I know it's a lofty one, but fashion being able to do good and be a force for good. Kate, do you want to just...
I think the fact that we're all sitting in this room makes me feel really hopeful. It's a conversation that's important, and I think awareness is starting to grow. And the more awareness, that change will run on from that.
Similar to Kate, I think it's happening. I think that shift is happening. I think brands need to see it from a holistic approach and need to say that, hey, we are a brand and we also manufacture in Australia, or we manufacture offshore, but we are, ethically accredited or have sustainable practices. But it can't just be about that. That's my big thing. We can't just be a brand that we we do good, we also need to be a fashion brand. We need to be desirable. We need to make sure that customers actually want to purchase our product, because if people don't purchase our products, then ultimately we don't have a brand. And if we don't have a brand, then there's no good kind of saying that we're ethical and sustainable, because we'll no longer be around.
I guess I'm sure that some of you are sitting here thinking there's a kind of disconnect, isn't there, with the idea of growth, producing consumption, and being sustainable and being ethical. How do we balance that? Gosh, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about that. Selling more stuff is not really sustainable in some ways. So how do you balance that in your mind? What keeps you up at night, and what do you...
We're still a really small business, so what we sell is still, it's a pin drop in the ocean of what H&M sells. But I mean, it's just simple for me, because I don't believe in slave trade, and I don't believe in screwing up the environment so there's nothing left. So, and that, I think everybody believes in that. If you explain it to them quite well, it's what's happening. So why should we be supporting that? It makes sense to just buy one thing or a couple of things a season and love them, pay a little bit extra.
And they're quality, so they last and they continue in your wardrobe, and you don't need something new every week in your life.
Yeah, I don't actually would want to see a child making my clothes. I'd rather if they went to school. You know?
That's a good point. Just that conversation brought to mind that very famous quote from Vivienne Westwood, whether or not you agree with her, whether or not you think she believes in it or not, buy less. Is it possible for designers, for business people to sit up here and say, buy less, while at the same time selling?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
So is buy less the
We'll just,
answer?
we'll just have a smaller business, and that's fine too,
Yeah,
because business is on demand. So
I think for us as well, I think that buy less, it's kind of the argument of design and commerce, and kind of getting that formula right, because as I said before, we definitely believe in producing a high quality garment, which means customers can obviously live in that product for a longer period of time, so they're not kind of having an effect on the environment. Saying that, the advantages, like Kate about Q, we're very similar. The fact that we produce here means that we have advantages, that we can produce quicker and we can get into stores quicker, and the lead times are much lower. So if we don't have kind of volume, then we also don't have a business. So it's that juggle of kind of
is a balancing
commerce
act,
and design.
But it's also about reducing waste, isn't it? If you are producing locally, if you are producing smaller runs, then you are inherently producing less waste, right?
Yeah, because ultimately you don't want dead stock at the end of a season. You want to send the right amount of product out to your stores and have the customers buy it, and reduce the waste that way. A lot of our customers come to us for the quality, and they know they'll get the longevity out of they might buy a winter coat from us once every 4 years, and that keeps them going rather than one each season.
Yeah. We're actually going to wrap up this part of the discussion now and take questions that have come via Twitter. Are we? I think we are. Maybe. I'll take the questions, and I might just ask something of Kate, which I did want to raise, which was this idea of talking about being reactive. I understand that, which I didn't know about Q, that you're able to tailor deliveries even to different stores. So you might deliver certain things to Parramatta, certain things to Melbourne.
Exactly. So we have 150 stores across Australia and New Zealand, from Darwin right at the top to Tasmania at the bottom, and we're in lots of different markets, and that means we're speaking to a different customer in many locations. Our city customer is different to our customer at Penrith, for example. So we make sure when we're designing that we're tailoring our product to suit those individual markets, and making here and being able to produce shorter runs allows us to do that. It's been something that's really been important to our success and longevity, the ability to do that. So without producing here in Australia, we may not have had 46 years of success.
That's fascinating.
I'm going to jump in.
Yes, please do.
Sorry. We're a little bit the same. We're not a retailer, so we're a wholesale brand. So we design, manufacture and sell and distribute globally. But for us, it's about working with our I guess, our partners, which are our retailers, saying, hey, what product is working in your store? And similar, let's try that. Let's try a production run because we've got the ability to produce that in 3 or 4 weeks, turn it over, get it into store, see how it sells. If it sells well, kind of go and do further production runs. And if we were manufacturing offshore and had really long lead times with kind of big quantities, we can't do that.
Yeah.
So, but saying that, the other challenge on that end is that the fact that I guess the disadvantages of producing in Australia means that the labour costs are higher and the raw materials are higher. So we need to be able to make sure that we still do volume. So it's only a good and kind of good business model if you're able to get the volume but also have kind of those higher costs. So as much as we want to be able to say, hey, let's produce a garment of high value, of premium, we also need to work out ways to make sure that our production runs are constantly producing because
you've got to keep those
means
people
the business
employed.
keeps those people employed. So that's why as a business, our distribution is really wide. We need to be commercial to some people and we also need to be kind of desirable and high end to others. So
Yeah, that's really interesting. I did also want to ask you, and there's a question here that has come through on Twitter, but Gosha, about some of the challenges that you face in producing something sustainably or ethically. A question came through on Twitter from, I can't read it, sorry. Anyway, it's about how difficult is it to source sustainable fabrics? Now, I know that you work with a particular mill in India, but how hard do you think it is for designers out there to source ethically produced and sustainably produced fabrics?
Well, it's not the norm, and we don't buy through a fabric merchant. We go straight to the factory, which goes straight to the farmer. So we only work with cotton, so I don't know about any other fibre.
Right.
But it isn't the norm, and because we do manufacture offshore, we have the problem of really high minimums and very long lead times. We design...
What are your lead times like?
Well, they say, like sales samples, it's 90 days, 3 months, and then production, it's 3 months, but it's more like 5 months. And we actually now design a year and a half out.
Wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah, and but the design process is interesting too because you do keep tweaking it along the way in various points. But we just make clothes that we like, and they have a certain aesthetic, and so we don't need to follow the trends.
Right.
Yeah, we you know our clothes are they're quite recognisable to us.
Yeah. Am I twittering? Is it this point? Sorry, I'm looking to get the time. Okay. These are statements, not questions. Sorry. All right. Yeah, this is a question from Lisa, from @Lisa Heinz. I wonder if the panel can elaborate on the challenge of fast fashion, especially when the mainstream consumer is not sustainably aware. How can we compete? Kate, do you want to talk to me a little bit about that? When we've got the Zaras and the H&Ms of this world coming into the Australian market, how do we compete?
I think, it's a great question. Having the Zaras and the H&Ms come into the Australian market, there's been a frenzy. We've all seen it. We've all seen the lines outside the shops and everyone waiting to get in. It happened when Sephora opened in Pitt Street as well. I think Australia loves seeing these international brands come here, and I think that there has been an initial feeding frenzy. I think we need to be careful of the race to the bottom, and we need to be careful about the $5 t-shirt, and somewhere along the line someone's being disadvantaged with that style of production. It is a competitive marketplace. Retail is tough. It's a tough game. It always has been, but having the international players in the mix has made it harder. I think what we are able to do here in Australia, Australian brands know their market and they know their customer well. So that's something we can do to always be mindful of the voice of the customer. For us, making here in Australia allows us to be more reactive to that voice of the customer. We delivered a cape to store in February. And I think everyone in the room wishes they had a crystal ball. You know, we all wish we had that fashion crystal ball where we know what's going to be hot, what's not. Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're not. We sent a cape out, a couple of hundred units. It was hot. It was so hot. It just sold out really quickly all across the group. In Queensland, when it was 40 degrees,
Right.
we couldn't believe it. We've now been able to do our 4th production run of this particular cape and had it go out to store again last week.
So that competitive edge does come from being able to be quick
Yeah.
and be reactive, I
Yeah,
guess.
and that's really important for us.
Ben, what do you think about this idea of the race to the bottom and the pressure on price? Because obviously bottom lines are affected when you're producing a premium quality product locally. It's more expensive than
Yeah.
knocking it out.
From I guess my perspective, we can't win that battle, so
Right.
I choose not
We
to
can't
fight it.
either. We
Like
can't
I just
either.
choose not to fight it. I think the customer that wants to shop at H&M or a list of those brands that sell price pointed goods, that's that customer. We're never going to win that battle. We're never going to be able to convince a customer that wants a jean for $19.95 to go and spend $199 or $220 on our jean. We're never going to win that battle. So what we need to do is we need to talk to the customer that is prepared to spend that $199, that does see the value in a longevity product, and is kind of picking a product of kind of lifetime value rather than kind of seasonal trend. Saying that, like these guys, the competitive advantage that we have is the fact that we do manufacture here. Okay, so we are a fashion brand on one end, and on the other side, we're a manufacturer. And those advantages of manufacturing are quicker to market, higher quality, shorter lead times, greater flexibility, greater control, greater quality. If we do not live up to those standards, then there's no advantage. You know what I mean? Then we just become a commodity, we become a fashion brand, and then we compete with the price-pointed people. So we kind of fight that balance that
Yeah.
whole time. So
It's interesting to hear you talk about trends, and I know, Gosha, you said before that you're almost outside of trends. What does fashion mean to you, and what can fashion mean in the modern context if we take out that idea of spring, summer, pre-fall trend, a trend mill? How do you view that with what you do?
Well, we only have cotton, so we can't deliver a really warm product in the middle of winter, and yes, we can supply a good product in the summer, but for some reason it just works for us. We have very limited amount of trims that we use, so a product can become quite, different looking.
I did actually read that
yeah.
you, when you first began, you didn't use buttons because there weren't buttons. You had to design garments without buttons and
Yeah.
zips because they didn't exist in
Yeah,
your...
I mean, that was interesting, but it was quite hard to get into some of them. But it worked. But bringing back to that discussion about the H&Ms and the Topshops, I think that if we have more of a consciousness and we talk about this more, like this discussion, and then you go and talk to 5 people, those 5 people talk to 5 people, H&M will start changing. They will start, because that will be the demand. As long as there is demand, the H&Ms will change. So
Well,
they will-
H&M isn't bad. H&M is a leader in terms of fast fashion, in terms of sustainability.
Yeah, I shouldn't be
think some of
picking
the
on
stuff-
H&M, sorry.
They're
But you know what I
pretty-
mean, like the Bangladeshi
Yeah,
disaster,
yeah.
That sort of stuff. And it's they start to get little diffusion lines, and then
Yeah.
those grow bigger. And because they are big retailers, they can actually just take over a whole fair trade factory and give them work.
it's also not that conversation that's purely about the product. I think it's bigger than that. I think it's about brands that see investing into making sure that when a garment is finished, that it's, trains rather than trucks, or it's trains rather than airline, or like travelling on an aeroplane for work travel. I think there's small decisions that businesses can make to reduce the environmental impact, and I think that's from packaging, I think it's from waste. I don't always think it's just from that manufacturing process of kind of picking trims and doing all that.
When you raise the spectre of the complexity of the issues, because there are so many ways in which we can be sustainable or unsustainable, it makes me think about that fear that people have.
Yeah.
So brands, designers, young designers, or more established designers or retailers can get quite scared of this conversation because they might not be doing everything right. but maybe they're doing some things right. I wonder if I can ask you all about that idea of baby steps, whether or not that's enough, and also about why you think people are scared to get involved in this conversation. Kate, what do you think?
I think people are scared to get involved in this conversation because we can be very good at finger pointing as a society, and we can say, sure, you're doing this, but what about that, that and that you're not doing? And I think people are uncomfortable opening themselves up to that. At Q, yes, we make here in Australia, and that is ethical manufacturing, but there are other elements of our business that perhaps we could be doing better, and over the next 10 years, I have no doubt that we will take more initiatives to become a more sustainable brand.
I think it's just so valuable to have the conversation. Ben, what do you think? Why do you think people are people scared to...
Well, I don't necessarily think people are scared. I think,
or are they
like we were
apathetic?
saying before, it's that global shift. Like, I think, you know, trends are bigger than just what you see on the street or what you see in the stores. And I think this conversation of sustainability and ethical practices is really relevant now, because I think that trend of like health and well-being is really big. And I think, you know, like, as we were saying before, hospitality and going to yoga and you know, people are looking after themselves now. People are kind of, and I think that's now turning into fashion. So I think this health and well-being aspect of life is really important to people. And now they're going, all right, well, look at my jeans or look at my jacket. Where's that kind of made? And that's just, so I think that will go. And I think, I'd like to think this health and well-being kind of trend is here to stay. It's a shift.
It feels like a shift.
But there will be, like, I'm also really realistic, and I know that there will be something else. So that's what I was saying before. I don't think we can compete with the brands that aren't doing what we're doing. They do that, and they're talking to that customer. And can I give you an example of something? I'll be really, really quick. But I was told, and don't quote me on this, but kind of don't quote me on this, but I was told about this story into hospitality, so I'll be really, really quick. But in, I think the UK, at a Tesco supermarket, like this whole big discussion on ethical practices and all that, and it was about caged eggs, and Tesco was saying as long as they keep on putting caged eggs in their supermarkets, that's going to sell because that is the cheapest product, and that's what people are going to buy. And they took this ethical standpoint of saying, you know what? We're going to take it out. You know, they had choice. They had eggs that were caged and they had eggs that weren't. And at the end of the day, 90% of their sales are coming from caged. And they were like, no, we as an organisation need to kind of take it off the shop floor and make a stance and not give the customer a choice. And if we don't give that customer a choice, then we're making sure that the environment's going to be better and these better practices are happening. So I think that's going to happen eventually into fashion, into retail, into customer psyche. Like, we don't give the choice of, you know, buyers don't buy bad, you know, brands that have bad standards and all that. It won't happen. So
it's a good idea. What do you think it's likely to happen, Gosha?
Well, it's difficult to compare it to eggs because eggs are like, I don't know, $4.99 or something for free range eggs. I don't know. And
so is a pair of jeans.
But
that is sadly true.
That is true.
So is a pair of jeans. I've seen jeans advertised for £7.99.
But to ethically make a pair of jeans, we don't make denim, but cotton trousers. You can't sell them for $7.99. You can't. So we have a fairly low price point. I feel like we do.
Which begins at what?
$69 for t-shirts, and it goes all the way up to $350 New Zealand dollars. So most of our dresses are, you know, between $150 and $220 kind of thing. So I feel like it's reasonable, but you can't compare it to $7.99.
I guess that does.
I just don't know how it's.
Yeah, it raises an interesting issue, which I think it would be great to wind up with, which is this idea of the true cost of something.
Yeah.
There's someone's paid for it somewhere down the line, I guess, and I think it would be really great if one of the things that we go away from this today considering is what is the value of a garment? What's the true value of something beautiful? What does beautiful mean? And where do the costs lie? Because I think we all know that you can't produce a $5 t-shirt and nobody pays.
Yeah.
Do we have time for any more questions? Yeah? Okay, we've got maybe time for one more question. I'd love to ask you all what keeps you up at night. I'm fascinated by that. What do you... What drives you? I'm going to start with Kate. Personally, in the business, what keeps you up at night? And in this sphere of sustainability, what are the big issues for you?
Oh gosh, okay, good question, Claire. What keeps me up at night? It's different every day.
Maybe nothing.
It's
Maybe
different every day.
But yeah, what drives you in this space?
Do you want me to jump in? While
Yeah,
think?
you jump in. Thank you, Ben.
No worries. For us, being a wholesale business, what keeps me up at night is that we can do everything that we think is responsible as a brand. That's from picking the right materials, making sure that people that work in our factory are going home with a good wage. But in the end of the day, what keeps me up at night is that when it kind of gets onto a shop floor and a customer gets it, that's the end of us. We don't have anything to do with that product or the life or like anything to do with where that product gets into, how often they're tumble drying it. Like the biggest waste of, I guess, environmental impact is factually said that it's home use. So
Yeah,
it's
I don't
energy.
have the statistics, but they're huge. It's something
energy,
crazy like 70%. of
yeah,
the
like
life,
energy done from for people, tumble drying and washing and that's kind of keeps me up at night. Well, we can do everything we want, but if everyone else is the end user is not doing it, well, why are we doing it? To a small degree.
Gosh,
Yeah.
what are the big issues for you in this world? What are the big issues in sustainability in the next few years for you?
I was just thinking about the what keeps me up at night question.
And that.
I had an answer for that.
Yeah, good.
I think I can be a bit of a perfectionist. So, I mean, to the point where it's like, where does the button come from? Where does the thread come from? And where does the... So, I want to have a business, we've just started to sea freight everything. Well, our packaging is biodegradable. Our swing tags are FSC approved. And, I start to think about things like the safety pin. Like, just kind of micro level thinking. And I don't even know if our consumer it really matters to them. But because I've driven that so much into the workroom, now I get caught up on it, my staff are now like, well, where did that paper come from? And I'm like,
That would keep me up at night too. I'm not even going there.
it's quite amazing to kind of see that.
Yeah.
We've dug ourselves a really deep hole.
Where does it stop?
Yeah.
Where does it stop?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't, I guess.
But that's the thing. That's what's so exciting is that you can just keep making it better and better. If we're going to introduce a new fabric, we know that it's going to have fantastic credentials. We will go to the source. We will meet the people, and that's the kind of level that I want to keep it at.
But that's the thing. Like, the products in store might then be kind of sold on hangers that aren't kind of sourced by like that just to me is freaked out.
You've gone completely to that
Let's stop on a
micro-land.
positive note about Kate. Do you want to just say?
I don't know.
Do you want to just share with us what you think the kind of next frontier is for sustainability and for ethical production practice in Australia? Like, what do you hope? What do you hope that happens in that?
I hope there's a greater awareness of it, and I guess going back to what keeps me up at night, for us, if the industry here shrinks and we're forced to go offshore because manufacturing doesn't exist here in fashion, like happened with the car industry, it just stopped. What does that mean for us at Q? We would have to completely shift the way we operate and how we deliver product to the store and how we react, and we'd need to plan so far in advance, and it would spin us completely on our head. That keeps me up at night. So the sustainability of the local industry is really important to us.
I think we're out of time, guys, but that's a really great note to finish on, the importance of supporting our local industry, which is what we're all here for this week.